We didn't have to pitch again. And that was unbelievable for the last 3 movies.
This is The Fabulist. I'm Joel Pilger. This is the podcast for creative studios mastering the art of business. Powered by my friends at Coop Studios, I'm traveling the world to gather all of the insights that studio leaders need but are much too busy to grasp. From animation and motion design to experiential and live action, music and sound design, here I'm celebrating those who are not merely participating in the industry, but reinventing it. Because the future isn't just coming at us, it's being created. So let's get started. The best title sequences don't just introduce a show or a movie, they set the tone. They pull you into a world and become an unforgettable part of the experience. Today, I'm having a conversation with the 2 partners behind Filmograph, a studio that has made its mark in the world of title design. Now, a funny story, one day I was grabbing coffee at the Commissary Coffee in Burbank when a guy walks up to me and says, "Joel, it's Aaron." And that's how I met Aaron Becker from Filmograph. Now, somehow he recognized me from social media, maybe. I was flattered and, of course, curious because when someone who has helped shape the look and feel of so many film and TV projects, you know there's a great conversation ahead. Now, fortunately for you, today I'm joined by both Aaron and Seth Kleinberg, his partner. These are the 2 minds behind Filmograph. Their studio has built a reputation for blending design and storytelling and motion to create memorable opening sequences and branding that set the stage for what's to come. Now, beyond the craft, what does it take to build and sustain a thriving creative business? And how has Filmograph adapted as the industry evolves? So there's all these questions, but I just know you're going to enjoy this conversation with these 2 gentlemen. So let's dive into their journey, where they started, how they've grown, and what's next. Let's get into it. My editor will just find the cool point to pick up the conversation.
Everything before this, hands off.
Exactly. Everything before this is confidential.
Yeah.
Aaron, finish the point that you were making, though. Because in a way, when I think of origin stories, if I said, how did Filmograph get started and all that, you guys will start to tell the story that's probably the safe, sanitized, what we tell everyone. What I am curious about, though, is there similarly, was there a catalyst called, I got handed a setback, or I got thrown a curveball, or I got fucked, and then I decided to take a new path, and then Filmograph emerged from that?
Yeah, and I think the best way to put this is that because ultimately Seth and I were in the right place at the right time in our careers, I think that it always is a combination, the way you just said it, of where you're at in your career, right place, right time, but also usually, yes, in combination with some kind of setback. And before Seth speaks in 1 second, I just want to say that Seth and I had known each other for a long time, and we'd lived in different cities at the time of Filmograph's founding. I was in Chicago. Actually, I know we mentioned Swarovski. I was down the street from her working out of a space, like a warehouse space with other artists, including Grayscale Gorilla, Nick Campbell is a close friend of mine who I knew from my DK days. And I was post DK.
That stands for Digital Kitchen.
Yeah, Digital Kitchen. And actually, like Chicago, anyone that knows Chicago, that's the best design company in Chicago, at least at the time it was. And the setback, I would say, here's the setback. Seth was out here in LA. I missed LA work because I was in Chicago and advertising reigned supreme. And DK at the time Digital Kitchen was really frustrating me in terms of their direction as a company, which we could get into philosophically forever. But I'm not going to do that since this is just about you and about us. And basically the curveball was, how do you continue doing what you love, but from afar? And that's when the research kicked into high gear as an independent contractor trying to find work in LA. And Seth and I realigned probably a couple years into that work. But now it feels like the entire time that Filmograph has been a thing, it's really been Seth and me, because like he and I realized, I think that we were both seeking something a little bit more meaningful, a little bit deeper than just being work for hire, hired guns at different studios. And at that point in my career, it was 5 years in, and I had had enough of working for other people, 5 or 6 years in. And I just realized that it was more interesting and more challenging to pursue what I loved in a new context. And that's pretty much all it is. But Seth has probably a similar.
Yeah, I mean, it was funny because it was like serendipity, because when we both, Aaron and I, worked at Prologue, we always said like it wasn't really a question of if, it was a question of when we would be together. And then I was doing, like he said, I was hopping around doing post-production and probably feeling like the sweat equity was not as good as the equity for a lot of these places. Building studios, knowing what not to do, another studio evolves, and building the infrastructure and kind of fixing the mistakes from last time and just oiling the machine over time over these studios, and really getting them to get good work and good production values because of that. So then, yeah, like feeling like I had contributed so much, but just didn't see it the same way as just being a freelancer. Then I was working in visual effects. I had gone from head of post-production to just head of production, all-encompassing production, which is something I really wanted to do when I was at Prologue. I was talking to Kyle about I wanted to integrate and start doing sales, and I always had a really good rapport with post-production supervisors and getting the work and talking about the work, but then I could also help finish the work because of my post-production background and sort of IT background. And so I was working visual effects and we needed graphic design. And I was like, oh, we should reach out to Aaron. And Aaron, I did a couple projects with that company, which was Level 256, run and founded by my friend Scott Davids. And then that sort of dried up, and VFX work in LA dried up altogether.
You know who we can thank for the true origin of our company? We can thank Larry David.
Yeah, that's kind of true. We could thank Larry David.
Oh, really? How's that?
We brought Aaron on at that company to work on Clear History for HBO because it had a really graphic design main title look, and that he developed. And it's a really fun project. We got to meet him. And that's a whole other story.
But that actually, the reason why I say that is that we realized, even though Seth was still at this other studio, I was completely independent. And I was like, Seth, I want to do this with you. Thank you so much for asking me. Like, this is a dream come true if we get to work with Larry David and Greg Mottola, who did Superbad. And we were like, and I flew out to LA, right? We were in Little Tokyo and we holed up in the studio and we were like, if we're meeting Larry David tomorrow, we're not going to go to bed. We're literally just going to come up with ideas all day, all night. And we're just going to come up with stuff until the meeting. And we're just going to go to the meeting fried and then sleep after, because it felt like it was that important to us. And what we realized during that time is, and this is no slight against Scott, by the way, Seth, but like Scott, who ran Level 256, he was busy and he wasn't around at that point in the pitch, because he just.
Well, he didn't stay up all night.
That's not even a bad thing. Like some people would say that's irresponsible, but when you're forming, Joel, you know this, when you're trying to start a company, there's something irresponsible about it anyway.
Oh yeah. No, there's something
that deeply irresponsible about saying, yeah, I can do this.
Which I love that point.
And so like then after that project, and we got the job and we finished it at Level 256, as I was saying, the work in LA was just drying up for VFX. And Aaron and I were like, this worked out. Let's talk about doing this for real. And we started at just like a case-by-case basis, which was as simple as, if we found a job that we could do together, we'd split the profit after hard costs. That's kind of it. And we would do that, and we would just do it. We would do that over and over again. And I think there was starting to talk about what's that called, and is that Filmograph? And Aaron was starting to switch Aaron Becker Design Incorporated to Filmograph, and that was a genesis. And then case by case that just was like, let's do this.
Here's what's funny, right? To your point, Aaron, is it's not irresponsible, because people think it's not irresponsible to start a company, because what we do is we come on podcasts like this and we tell these stories and we all go, look how great it all turned out. But what the podcasts you don't hear are the people who launched a company and did the same irresponsible thing and it totally tanked. So we don't hear those stories. But you and I know that in that moment, there's no difference.
You certainly couldn't forecast that we would be where we were at then, when we were just wrapping up Clear History and saying yes to like really any budget whatsoever and just trying to get work. And there's obviously a lot of trying to get work at the beginning. A lot.
Yes. Yes.
Joel, to your point, also, the truth is that when you really like something and you take that kind of leap, you really care about the work or whatever, you know that you're actually like willing to fail on the level that you're talking about. And if we had completely crashed and burned as a company, I still at that moment in time would have loved the work as much as we still do in terms of succeeding, quote unquote, whatever success actually means. The truth is that it's when you look around and you look at other studios, the question that I always ask myself is, okay, are you working with good people and are they doing good work?
Yeah.
And that's always the tricky thing. If you find yourself mired in a situation where you get great pay and the work is just not that cool and you're supposed to be there for years and stuff, this is the thing I never understood. And I don't even want to name names when I say this. And I'm not talking about specific companies that we compete with. I'm talking about larger corporations, for example, that hire people who shall not be named on this call. But like when I see people take those types of positions and then 2 years later, they're like, yeah, I got paid well, but then I was like realizing that my soul was being crushed. That's such a, for me personally, and I know it's a luxury to say this, but I think you, to a certain degree, you put yourself in positions of quote unquote luxury. Like you make to a certain degree, you make your own success. Like I always say to my dad, like, I feel really lucky. We say it to each other. Do you know how fortunate we are? Do you know how fortunate we are? But here's the difference between fortunate and luck. Like when I say to my dad, oh, I feel really lucky. You are lucky in some ways, but when it comes to the business, you also make your own luck by working as hard as you do or by craft.
We've probably all heard the famous quote, luck is just simply where preparation and opportunity intersect.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. What I love is the heart, and I find this to be true in almost all creative entrepreneurs, is that there's this heart of appreciation and gratitude, which says, man, I feel so lucky. But if you unpack it, it actually is preparation and opportunity, because preparation means you just keep showing up. Here's an example.
Yes.
I just did a podcast with our mutual friend, Greg Herman.
Oh, great.
And we talked over and over again about how many times it was just doing the work, showing up, but also from a place of like crazy, obsessed, I just must do this. And that is often the differentiator of like, when you're talking about that level of preparation, yes, when opportunity comes along, you're very likely to seize it and it moves you forward and you get to the next thing and the next thing. And here we are, whatever. And now, how many years has Filmograph been a thing now?
I think it's technically 11, right?
You crossed the decade threshold.
Yeah, but we didn't change our icon to a 10-year icon.
Didn't put the little graphic goodie on there
no
that
10,
tells us.
No 20.
That's not really my thing, to be honest with you. I can't really do that. And you know why? I think it's a little bit of self-awareness to a fault. I like, do you ever do this? Because like Seth and I talk about this all the time with people that we work with here. It's, hey guys, we really like what we're doing. We really care about what we're doing. But like most people don't care.
Oh,
no offense to like you guys. No offense to like you or me, or no one really cares. Okay. Like we care because we're like artistic or a little bit like designy, and we care about solving story problems and technical problems. Like Seth and I have this blend of story and technical that's always going on. Are we more technical right now, or are we more story driven right now? Is this a more, we can't talk about technical at all until the story thing is done. We can't talk about the story thing until we solve the technical thing.
But the level of care.
They're like always, right? They're always feeding.
Well, it's a hive mind. I think it's a hive mind.
Yeah. And like and the people that we've been so fortunate, I'm going to use the word again, to have retained in our orbit because we love them. There's probably about, right now our team is always hovering around 10, but that probably goes to your experiences too, Joel, in terms of size and what's worked for you, what's worked for us, and things like that.
One thing I hear you saying, and this is a rather crass rendition of it, but years ago I had a operations guy working for me, and he used to categorize this character trait that he saw in people as give a shit level. What's that person's give a shit level? And I found it to be oddly a great distinction, because you could work with people where you're like, yeah, they're doing the job and they're showing up and they're plugged in. And then there was this other level of, wow, there's always that something extra. That person is just tenaciously never letting go of the thing until it's right, until it's done, until it's different, to something. It's such a strange characteristic to try and verbalize or explain. But when somebody has it, you just know, I want that person on my team.
I think what you just said, the tenacity, but also, you know what, when interns come in, okay, we usually have no more than 2 interns in our program per year, and we only do the summer program. Okay. So it's the reason why we do that, Joel, is obviously because we're a boutique, but so we can't afford to do it seasonally. It doesn't make sense to us I'm not just talking about financial, and I'm not talking about overhead only. I'm talking about emotional capacity and the energy that you can devote to a cause. So like, for example, I do some volunteering out here in LA, and I'm not saying that internship is like our internship program is volunteering, but what it is, this like exchange where you want them to get value. And what I think is really interesting, we always say this, well, guys, welcome to Filmograph. We're so excited to have you. The one thing we just want you to know at the beginning of the program is we're going to know if you care.
Well, it's like a sink or swim, right?
Yeah, it's not a judgment. It's not a warning. It's just like saying, we're going to know if you care. Feel free to do your thing. Like, we're just as passionate as you are. But like at the end of the day, you either care about it or you don't. And it's okay. We're going to make the most of this. Let's make the most of this. And that's like our approach philosophically with even the artists. But I'm saying especially the junior ones that come in.
Now I have to ask this question. Doesn't it stand to reason that exact same equation applies to your clients? Because here's what I always discovered, right?
It does.
So true.
Is that when my team would be bad-mouthing one of our clients behind the closed doors, scope creep or not making up their minds or whatever it was, I would tell them, warning, our clients are listening. And they'd be like, no, they can't hear this. I'm like, trust me, they feel it.
They do.
Oh, like you're wearing it on your sleeve almost. Yeah.
You're
right?
so right about that. Yes, it does. It's almost that it's like a sixth sense on whether you're in a room or you're on a Zoom call. Sometimes we'll get off a call and I'll be like, those 2 people were cool, but did you think that there was something a little off about the third person? Right. And is it like, do you think that they're being completely truthful about their experience or their desire to work with us? Do they care? If they don't, it's really tricky to invest even 1 minute. I have this joke. There are politicians and professional athletes and all these celebrity figures that some of whom really happen to annoy me based on things that they've said or done. And I have this joke, it's a really silly thing, but some of my friends like to entertain it. I'm like, how much do you think it would take for me to sit down with that person and have a 10-minute coffee?
Oh, wow.
There's a minimum cost in my mind because of the way that I value my time. I don't have time for that kind of nonsense. If we feel like you're not a good person, you're disinterested, or you're just downright offensive, like we have to, as we get older in this, we have to filter out. I feel like we have to filter out problematic experiences and problematic people to create the healthiest environment for us from a client standpoint, like you're saying, Joel.
Yeah.
Not to mention from a collaborative artist standpoint.
Well, then also, if your client isn't a dick, you're going to get better work. We're going to give you more work for the money that you have.
100%.
And we're going to have a better time. That's the testament of like our good creative at Filmograph. It's the client is cool. They come back, they're repeat clients, and they're friendly, and the experience is just like a good time as opposed to an uphill battle. And those are our favorite clients.
I'm going to drop a secret on all the buyers or clients that might be listening right now. In my experience, if you are appreciative, you will get so much fucking awesomeness out of your creative partners. I can't even tell you.
Oh my God.
And if you are not appreciative, just get the hell away. Just go. Just stop. We don't want your work. We don't want your money.
Yeah.
Just get away from us.
Yeah, it's almost like it's like a poison.
I think being able to pass on that character trait, if you want to call it that, like to our team, like every time someone posts something really great, let's say in Slack, or they're offering up a new idea, we're always thanking our team almost like effusively.
Yeah. Love that word.
Or at least I know that Seth like sometimes Seth thinks I do it too much, even with clients. Like I'll be like so effusive about stuff, but I do really mean it. And I think I get some of that from, I don't know, there was like some guilt. There was probably some guilt in my family. I come from a Jewish household, but my mom was raised Irish Catholic. And so there's this like interesting juxtaposition of Catholic and Jewish guilt.
Yeah. Yes. Sometimes we have to count the number of thank yous and be like, Aaron, it could have been just like.
And Seth will predict. He'll predict the thank yous. He'll say, Aaron's going to thank you.
How many exclamation marks do you use? Are you also effusive with those?
I use a couple, but because of Larry David, I can't overuse them. And when I say Larry David, I'm referencing a Seinfeld episode where actually Elaine gets upset at her boyfriend for not using an exclamation mark to describe their friend having a baby.
Right.
So Elaine and her boyfriend, who I don't know who plays it. It might be, I'm not sure who plays the boyfriend, but they get into a spat about the fact that he did not write it down when he took the note from the phone call. And that's like a writer's kind of dream to craft that kind of joke. But yeah, I use them. I think I try to be a little sparingly, but I probably use them more than Seth.
Or I'll find myself typing them and then retracting them and then, it's a period or it's a dot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, dude. Oh my gosh. We live in similar worlds. So let me reset the room because I'm sure we're into this really cool conversation, but there are people listening that are like, who are these guys? Just do me a favor. Aaron, I'll let you start. Just introduce yourself and tell us your role at Filmograph and then pass it to Seth.
Cool. Yeah. My name's Aaron Becker and you're currently listening to an amazing podcast by Joel Bilger.
Kissing ass will get you everywhere.
Exactly.
There's
the thank you. Yeah, that's a little performative. In all seriousness, I'm Aaron Becker. I'm the creative director and co-founder of Filmograph. And introducing.
Hello, I'm Seth Kleinberg, a principal and co-founder with Aaron, and I'm the executive producer of Filmograph. And you said you want to know what we do. I think we do whatever we can to help. I think that's the core of our organization. If you feel like you can make an impact, you help. But in addition of just being like the client liaison and setting budgets and expectations of jobs and managing the artists, I also have a technical background. So I'm also the post-delivery guy to make sure that whatever leaves our office is sound technically. And I think that is one of our strong suits, and it gets us more work because if the experience and the delivery were on time, on budget, and the client was delighted, that is the ultimate goal.
You just unpacked what it means, because if I'm looking at the website, right, it says Filmograph, design and branding studio based in Los Angeles. I'm dying over that little word A. I'm like, it's the guys, come on, the.
But that's actually good. That's actually really good. You would laugh if you knew what it said before.
Okay, well.
It said a lot of. We had how many edits to that line? A lot.
We had a lot of edits because I'll tell you why. It said Filmograph is an Emmy-nominated design and branding studio based in Los Angeles. And you know what I realized? I realized that's just way. It's screaming. It's trying for attention too much. So now if you go to the About page, you can read that line.
Here it is. Can I read it?
You can read it.
It says Filmograph is an Emmy-nominated full-service production studio specializing in feature film and television main title design, entertainment branding, live-action direction, animation, and visual effects. But I'm going to submit, if you guys have an expertise, which I know you do, but if you had an expertise, meaning, and when you work with us, here's what happens. Tell me that. What outcome happens when a studio or a director or somebody hires you guys? What's the shit?
I think if I had to answer that, because I think that in a sense, your question is almost like, why hire us? And the best thing I can say is that you're talking to us directly about the story, about the storytelling.
Always.
We don't deal in Kafka-esque bureaucratic nonsense, which literally, Joel, is the reason why I left larger companies. I don't like large companies. I have a problem with authority. And now
this.
we get to be our own. I guess we get to police each other.
Yeah,
We get to police each other.
and I think there's never a scenario where a client if they need to talk to Aaron and me, that's easy, and that's a phone call, and that's a text message, and it's however reachable we are. There's never going to be some like layer of oh no, Aaron can't come to the phone or something like that.
Okay, so I'm still going to push you guys a little further, because if I was to be a dick and say, so what?
Yeah, so
tell me,
that's
why does that matter? Because what I think, my theory is, by working directly with Aaron and directly with Seth, here's what's possible.
Yeah, I think you're making a really good point. Like, to us, we view the collaboration and the closeness of the collaboration as the most valuable thing, but it wouldn't be anything, like you're saying, Joel, it would not matter if we didn't offer a combination of two things. Seth just explained his technical expertise and the work that he does with the clients and business development. But the other side of it is pretty much high-level creative. Just to be really humble for a moment, we started in a similar place working for Kyle Cooper at Prologue. And that was after I got a really good education. And just to fast forward from that moment 20 years ago to now, because it was literally 20 years ago that I started working for Kyle. And I worked for him for 4 years. And what I can say is, even though it was not a relationship that I think would have gone on for many years after that, the amount that I learned from him and his disciples.
Yeah, good word.
The amount that I learned during those 4 years, including from Seth, was so insanely valuable that I wouldn't even say it was another college experience. I would say it was like 2 more college experiences within half the time. So 4 years is like 8 years of graduate school. Right. And I don't even advise that anyone go to graduate school. No offense to anyone in our particular field. Graduate school in other fields makes sense. I don't think it really makes as much sense in our field for just personal reasons, just from my perspective. But that combination
it's a crash course.
And and it led to high-level creative mixed with what Seth brings to the table, which is also creative because he spent so much time around storytellers that he has become one. And that's just what happens. And I would say that the only difference is I've spent so much time around someone with his level of technical prowess, and I have not become technically.
You haven't had to, right?
I've had to only in the sense of my software. I have sophistication in my software, yes, but I'm talking about like a more global technical.
So here's what I read. Actually, I'm going to be totally honest. It was when I was preparing and doing research, I threw some things at ChatGPT and I asked it, hey, if you were going to create some sort of a little intro, here's part of what it said. Part of what I know, right? You ready for this?
Jesus.
It
said, I mean, if you use Grok, would it be a better answer at this point?
Well, maybe we'll find out. Yeah. But what it said was, today I'm joined by Aaron Becker and Seth Kleinberg, the creative minds behind the studio responsible for some of the most iconic and immersive title sequences in film and television. If you've ever been captivated by an opening sequence before the first scene even begins, chances are these guys had something to do with it. So I know that's a bit bombastic, but I am going to say this. But wait, here's what I'm going to say about this.
It's comical.
If I'm a client out there, I think I just answered the question for the buyer who is like, wait, what's possible by working directly with Aaron, directly with Seth? Like, you guys have created a business model that is all about a certain scale and access to whatever crazy genius or something that lives in your brains that I know you want to minimize because you're humble creatives.
Definitely
I know why you're humble, and I love that. But if I'm a buyer, I'm going to go to my friends and be like, the reason I work with that team is because I need a moment, a branding, I don't know, an experience, something that's going to be iconic and memorable. And I think that's what's possible when I work with Filmograph.
I think what's really you're proving that seeing things from the outside in is so valuable sometimes, because we get so inside our heads with what it is that we do that we sometimes forget that it's really hard to explain it to just the average person in a lot of ways because we're so focused on the details. But you just articulated something about the iconic nature of our offering. And I think what that comes down to is like the a little bit of the combination of the training with design that has led to our hyper awareness of what it means to be, for example, to have good typography, to mix good typography with good storytelling, to also take what is literally the most common phrase from graphic design saying, okay, type an image. The thing I've been fascinated with from the very beginning is what we do is type and moving image. Not just type an image, it's type and moving image. And that intersection of graphic design and film, once I found out as a young graphic designer that was even a career, I was like, wait, what? Are you crazy? This is a thing, like graphic designers are in there doing stuff. So the excitement has only accelerated over the years. And if you're looking at the evolution of our relationship, that's what I'm most grateful for is the fact that like every year is technically a new phase of that where you're looking for new business, you're looking for new opportunities, and you're continuously trying to challenge yourself. And I would argue that at this point, Seth and I are doing the highest level work that we've ever done in our lives. And I'm not, and that's not to say what that is compared to other people. I have no idea. I'm just talking about for us. We're doing the highest level work, and it's because the team has organically grown around us, and they care as much as we do.
Shit factor that you're sharing.
Yes,
and to Aaron's point, I think number one, I don't think we try to weed out people that don't give a shit really quickly, right? And we only and just like we love our repeat clients, we love our permalancers and we love our freelance guys that come back because we know what they're going to bring to the table and we know that they care. And then also I wanted to just touch that. I think when Aaron was talking about high level work and creative, I think we also know when not to pursue a bad idea. And we're only going to evolve an idea that we all think has merit in terms of the storytelling and the creative. Because I don't think what's the point of showing a bunch of boards of ideas that we can't believe in ourselves?
Sure. I'm curious, when I think of where you guys sit in the industry, I remember I was at an Emmys event because they were screening the nominees. And we were all the judges and everybody, we were all there to sort of celebrate and party and whatever. And I can remember at one moment there was a panel and Patrick Clare told this little story. And he said, whenever I go to universities, schools, et cetera, and talk to the students, there's a student that will always stand up and be like, you know what? When I grow up or when I graduate, I want to make a living doing film titles. And he said, what I always say is, yeah, me too.
So amazing.
Right? Here's where he backs it up, right? So he turns to Michelle.
Yeah.
And then he turns to Karen Fong. And then he looks at himself and he says, okay, see the three works up here that are all nominated? He said, did anybody make money on any of these? And everybody said, no. Now you know the context, okay? So my question now is, how the hell are you guys pulling this off? Because it's a bizarre niche that you're in where there are so many people that will do the loss leader or they will.
I love that story.
And to your question, if you look at we're not doing a ton of commercials, right? That's really evident by our website. We're not doing a ton of commercials. So there's not that offset income that you might think might
bread
exist.
And butter.
And I think I'll probably point it to Aaron, but I think one of the big things was when we were doing primarily film titles and then slowly getting more television work, that we said to ourselves, like, we really enjoy the branding work. And that ends up being a large percentage of our portfolio. And sometimes that does offset the costs of titles not having the budgets that we all wish they were. Well, and I'll throw that to Aaron.
I think you're spot on. Because one of the things, and I think this goes back to what this is so interesting about the Patrick Clare thing, because that thing when he said, me too, like I want to grow up and do that for a living or whatever, when the person said that, because here's the thing that's really interesting about that. I don't know why, but I've followed a thread from very early on in my education. Like when I was coming out of school, I was interested in logo design. I was interested in title design. And I've literally just been like this, kind of following those things. And what's really interesting about the branding side of it, when you say, how are you doing this or that, and continuing in a challenging industry, like where obviously the landscape is changing, we see things happening to companies like The Mill, which I'm sure we'll get into.
Oh boy.
But no, not.
No.
It's relevant to.
It's definitely relevant.
To people's
and our philosophy.
concerns.
I think it's relevant to our
Right.
philosophy.
It's relevant to concerns, fears. What I can tell you is this: the last 5 years in LA, the things that have happened. Let's talk about what's happened to the industry. You had COVID scaring the hell out of production executives and not putting money into physical production during that time. Then all of a sudden animated shows were a thing again because like people could do that work out of their houses without endangering people. So a little bit more money was put into that during those first couple years. Then a few years later, we know what happened with the strikes. And that pulled the rug out from even more people, actors, but also people on physical production. And then
things were delayed, like jobs that were awarded were delayed, and there was such a delayed startup. I think we're doing this job, but I don't know when.
and then I'm sure you heard this, Joel, because I actually think I saw you mention this online somewhere. I could have sworn I saw something written in one of your posts about this. But the theme in LA, just like in other parts of the industry last year, was survive until 25.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you heard that. And here's what's interesting. People have survived until 25 or tried to. And now there's still frustration brewing because it's too slow or people haven't gotten that job yet still. What I would say for us, when Seth talks about the branding thing, when things get slow and people aren't out there filming, they want to work on their identity.
Oh, interesting.
They spend time thinking about their identity for the next phase of when things pick back up. We were already deeply entrenched in branding because I was fascinated with logo stuff like for my entire career. But then when you think about doing it for filmmakers, I was even more excited about crafting these identities. And what we learned over the years ahead of the pandemic and served us extremely well during that time was that those same filmmakers that are making the movies oftentimes don't have their production, they don't have their identity figured out. The same people that hire us for a movie,
they don't have a production company logo.
Right.
They don't have the logo figured out, and it needs to go in front of the very movie that we're working on.
Well, I'm wondering if there's just a simple pattern of, it's almost what I would call the feast or famine, that when somebody's on a production, they're all in on the production and they're hiring you for the title. And then the thing ends and then they're like, shit, I got 6 months or a year before the next thing kicks in. I guess I should take care of all that other stuff, meaning my brand, the identity,
yes,
all the other pieces and parts. And you guys are like, yep, we got you and we got you.
Yeah. And Joel, the crazy thing about it is like in a field where most people take the commercial jobs, okay, for the alternate revenue stream, like Seth was saying, we have eschewed that in favor of a different type of revenue stream that is all about identity and branding, because that's the world that I come from with graphic design. And here's what's interesting about it. There's a lot of studios out there, Joel, you know very well, competing with us. And for some reason, they have chosen not to focus on that.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I don't know what that is. Maybe they're focused more on animation or visual effects or storytelling. But this is a different type of storytelling that lines up perfectly with graphic design and brand identity work that I've always wondered why that wasn't capitalized on more. And Seth and I slowly planted that seed over years and basically being like, no, this is now, Joel, more than 25% of our business. Well, it's more than 25% of the money that.
Here's what I'm going to say is in my experience, what I've noticed is the answer to your question, why, is addiction to cash.
Oh, interesting. You mean like the commercial addiction?
Yeah, meaning if you're running a studio and you're like, I need to augment this type of work that we do with, call it, there's like the one for the meal, one for the real mentality, right?
Exactly.
We do this beautiful work over here.
Well, and we're not immune. Let's be frank, we're not immune to that. We'll take jobs for money.
Of course. If you didn't, I would be raking you over the coals. Yeah. I'd be like, come on.
Right.
Because your first job in business is always to stay in business. That's mission number one, always, right? So
100%.
So when you're doing the one for the real, but then you're like, yeah, but we need to do some work just to cover our bills. What do? Your mind goes to the that short-term, quick gratification thing called who are the quick buyers? Who are the easy buyers? And it's advertising agencies. It's the promo work that you do for streamers and cable and those kinds of people. So I think that just becomes natural, and you build those relationships. They can buy from you quickly. They pay you quickly, relatively speaking.
We wouldn't mind more of those.
Yeah, for those listening, we'll be happy to take those.
Right? But if you have patience and you're willing to say, hey, let's actually do the work that we really feel called to do, it might take a few more months for it to matriculate.
Yes.
You're 100% right about that. And we're not opposed to different types. Like, for example, Seth has a lot of contacts in the video game industry. We've done some really interesting jobs that like no one would really think that we've done because we don't really have it on our site, but like they've been fun to do. And they don't really have anything to do with like our core work. Or for example, we'll be hired to do key art.
Sure.
Posters. We did a book cover earlier this year for someone just because we wanted to help, but we're not really putting that on the site. There's weird things like that don't get shown that are alternate. I guess you could technically call them alternate revenue streams, but I would say it's more about helping friends in the community whose work we believe in, as opposed to focusing on how much money we're making from it. Because the truth is that after an AT&T job, probably 7 or 8 years ago with Shy at Day, Joel, we had a Shy at Day AT&T job that went for months. And I finally realized that, no offense to Shy at Day or anyone else listening from there, I hate all of that stuff. I hate most of the people, and not on a personal level. I'll have a beer with those people. I'm saying I don't like the vibe that they give off. And we're not on the same page dynamically. There's no rapport really. And we tried to make it work because we were testing ourselves. And I think that we'd be open to it again, but we're so much more mature at this point that we're not really in the mood to take shit from anyone. And we just want to be positive. We want to have a positive experience, and not one that bogs us down and takes all of our creative attention away from the projects that we also love. We just want to have a shared experience where we can help you and we can do high quality work, but where you don't pretend like we're indentured servants. Please.
So you're triggering.
Thank you.
You're triggering a memory.
Oh, look. Oh, and you saw you chased it with the thank you.
Right. Yeah. So you're triggering a thought, a memory, because do you remember, when was it? It was almost a year ago that I was in LA and I did the dinner and you guys came to the dinner, which was really special.
So much fun.
And I think I remember you talking about a certain time of year that you guys take time off, or you even close the office. Can I bring that up?
Joel, you are like, I just realized you're so good. I just realized how good you are at this.
That definitely exists. And then, did you remember the game associated with that, Joel, or not?
No.
The game is, if the phone rings during that time, hypothetical, and it's so-and-so, do we take the job or do we not take the job?
Wait, but how do you, you've only given me half, you've buried the lead.
Well, Eric,
the answer is what?
All right, let's try it. Let's
Before
try it.
Outline the time period really quickly, and I'll make it brief.
Yeah.
Between Thanksgiving and the first week of January, our entire studio shuts down for 5 to 6 weeks, and everyone gets a break. And everyone gets some kind of bonus who's been with us for a certain amount of time. And it's our way of saying thank you so much for a really productive year. This should cover you for X amount of weeks. And if you choose to pick up some additional freelance work during that time, feel free, do whatever you want, but we're going to cover a little bit of your time, and let's come back refreshed. We love you guys. Okay. Thanks so much. And
that, well, hold on. First of all, that mostly works, but then there's naturally a couple little tricklers that sort of annoy us, and we get through it. But for the most part, we are just re-energizing, recuperating, feeling out what the next year is. We might take a meeting, but we're not really doing any creative work, no pen to paper.
Right, not in production.
No.
Maybe we're finishing a couple of jobs that are just like the client lied to us and it went past Thanksgiving, but we have to deal with those eventualities. But assuming the perfect world scenario is we are not doing jack shit between the time the turkey goes in the oven and the week after New Year's. And we take it pretty seriously, and we tell our clients 6 months in advance, and we're really adamant about it. And I think, how many years now, Aaron? 7? This will be the 8th.
This will be the 8th year. And the interesting thing about it is I remember at the beginning, we were not sure how it was going to work. And it has sustained us in a way. I did the math, Joel, on this, okay? And after 7 years, okay, if you count any additional days off you might take throughout the year, like a few days here, a few days there. I realized that we have taken a year off.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
We have taken almost an entire year off in 7 years because of this plan that we've created. Obviously, Seth, is true. There are some things that have invaded the time in a way that have disrupted the very beginning of the break. And this last year, one of those situations happened. But I don't think it takes away from the ethos.
No, it doesn't. It just sometimes like bogged me down.
It affected Seth sadly more this time than
but it was fine.
than in previous years. But for the most part, that 4 to 6 week period, it's really important to have over a month. But the point of it is that came from a near burnout era in 2018 of two colliding jobs, Mission Impossible and Aquaman, were happening at the same time, and we were dying. And I realized, and I don't know if Seth felt exactly the same way as I do, but I was like, if I don't walk away now for 2 months, I'm never going to want to do this again.
So does that, I'm going to call it a policy. Maybe that's too dry of a word, but.
No, it's pretty much a policy.
Yeah, okay, we'll call it a policy.
And then we can touch on the game after that, yeah.
Yeah, does it, in a sense, create some sanity for the rest of the year when you're working hard and you're sometimes having to put in extra time or whatever, because it's not just, we're going to shut down between Christmas and New Year's. It's like, no, we're going to shut down for a month plus.
Joel, like the cool thing about it that when we did it, I wasn't even thinking about it from that level of the rest of the year. I was thinking about coming back refreshed. But what I realized over the last several years, I think Seth can agree to this, is sometime over the summer, there's this another layer of joy that comes when we start to notify clients and we start to ask questions and we start to say, wait, when did you say your project's delivering? Are you sure you want to still hire us? Because that's pretty close to Thanksgiving. And once we're into December, we're not really around. Are you sure you want to hire us? And then it's so amazing because most of the time, they're like, yeah, we do. And then what happens is if we start to sense that things are off in September or October, or it might be delayed, we essentially start planting the seed then and we say, look, we're having a great time on the project, but we're not really going to be around. It seems like we're going to have to probably like check out and pick it back up in January. For the most part, it's worked. Because
of the pre-warning. The pre-warning then makes them, we basically force them to be responsible as opposed to not be responsible.
It's called managing expectations, right?
Yeah.
What I love is it's the idea of we are all afraid, and we are afraid of loss, and we are afraid of being denied opportunity and all this, and that, of course, gets in the way. So most people never mention the thing. And so when you guys said, we bring it up 6 months in advance, I said to myself, whoa, that's maturity. Because for you to drop that on somebody, hey, just friendly reminder, we're talking about this project. Just friendly reminder, we have this policy and we shut down for these weeks or for this month.
Yeah.
Most business owners are like, I'm not hitting send on that freaking email.
Yeah,
because what if? And then our brains goes through all of the fears.
And I probably had hesitation when the first email went out. The first time,
and
when Aaron, because it's not mandated by Aaron, but its core is.
No, we finally. I was pushing you. I was pushing you,
and I probably agreed to it on year 2 and was reluctant on year 1, and now I love it. Now I love it because it's
we pushed each other to grow.
Yeah.
Because it's not something that I felt entirely comfortable with either. But what I learned, the biggest opportunity that I think we lost during this, okay, when I think about all the years, there was one movie, and it's not something, but when we think about it on the whole, does it matter that much? No, not really. And I'll tell you what it is. It was an M. Night Shyamalan movie called Knock at the Cabin. We've done a lot of his movies, and he's been like really cool with us creatively. We've been so grateful for the collaboration and just the way in which he unexpectedly embraces metaphor in graphic design is so unlike most filmmakers. And so we've been able to do really cool stuff. But when this happened, there was like literally, we told him and we told the producer, and you know what they said? They said, guys, no hard feelings. We'll call you on the next one. And guess what they did? They called us on the next one and we did it. It was like, that's validation. If there's no grudge, there's no like holding, they clearly valued, I'm not saying that they loved it, but I'm saying they clearly at least acknowledged that that's cool.
Yeah, you have boundaries
that's
and
something
you like
important
that.
to them.
Yeah, and I guess also to that point, it's so funny after we start talking about the break to some high-level filmmakers or high-level producers, they're like, "Can we work for you? We love this idea." And that's happened on so many calls.
Wait, who said that?
Barry Jenkins.
Barry Jenkins. Jenkins said that to
Yeah,
us.
he said,
The director
"I wanna work
of
for you."
Moonlight.
Yeah.
The director of Moonlight on the call in front of all his people. He's, guys, I think I'm leaving and I'm going to go work for film.
Tell me if this is a pattern repeating, because this happened to me when I was running Impossible, that my favorite clients were the ones that would often say, I want to come work for you someday.
Yeah, there you go.
And because you know what that's saying is that person sees themselves in your story.
Dude, 100%. That's such a cool way to say it.
Right? I'm part of something.
Yes.
I am part of something. I am part of Filmograph. I feel connected to this team, to this story. I think those are the dream clients. Those.
Not only those are the best clients, those are the clients you can iMessage as opposed to email. Those are the clients that come back. Those are the clients that you feel like are more your friends than your clients, but they happen to just also be giving you money for work.
Yeah, and also like to that point, Seth, and to what you're saying, Joel, too, is that some of those stories are the best of those stories are when you're growing with your client. So I'm saying like when their success is here, let's say it's lower when you start working together, and then they have more, and then they have more, and you're a part of it together. And it's like, guys, like we've been on this ride for 10 years. Before you know it, like we're doing the 4th Mission Impossible in a row
right now
with the same filmmakers but by the way, we won the pitch almost exactly 10 years ago on the first Mission Impossible.
Well, no,
almost exactly 10 years ago.
The first one we worked on.
Almost 10 years ago, yeah.
Wow. Yep.
And every single year, the trust has slowly built more, and we've been so lucky and fortunate. And they've been generous and collaborative. And again, financially, whatever, like that's part of it, but it's not like, I wouldn't say that like we certainly don't do those movies because of money. Like that's not what it is.
Right.
Like the same way you told the Patrick Clare story, which I love. Did anyone make money on these? It's like, yeah, we've made a little bit of money on them, but that's not really why we do them. We haven't made like AT&T Bad Shy a Day blood money.
No.
Which I don't even want it. Take your money back because you guys were horrible to work with.
No, I think there's something really beautiful that you've described there about how do client partner relationships evolve and grow and become really strong, so that, because I'm thinking of the studio owner out there that's like, oh, I want to get in on that client and I want to pitch them. And it's like, hey, totally get it. But just understand, sometimes there's a good reason that there's 10 years of incumbency, because the trust, the familiarity, the confidence, it's like, if I'm the filmmaker and I'm working with you guys and you just keep bringing it and my success is tied to your success, I'm like, why would I touch that?
Yeah.
That's a really good question. And I think that just to also be humble about the all of the opportunities, we've also understood when someone has felt the need to tamper with that formula. Joel, like we had multiple James Wan movies. We had done Insidious, The Conjuring. We had done another Insidious movie with him. Then I think we had done Fast and the Furious, or Furious 7 with him. We had done all these movies back to back that he had just given to us, right? But then he got an opportunity of a lifetime to direct Aquaman for DC and for Warner Brothers. And he said, look, guys, we've had such a long running relationship at this point, like 6-7 years. I would love to just hire you flat out, but this project is so important to me and the producers and to everyone around me that we have no choice but to entertain pitches. We have to do it this time. And you know what? We took it so seriously, because exactly what you said, Joel, you know how you said, we'll go to the moon for you?
We'll go to
you know how you said that?
We'll go to the moon for James Wan any day of the week.
We'll go to the moon for these people whose careers have followed that parallel trajectory that you mentioned, but also who understand that this isn't personal when they put us in those positions, or when they say this is how it has to be right now. And you know what? We fought so hard and we earned that movie. It wasn't given to us. So anytime those are presented to us, it shows him that we're that much more committed again.
And we're committed to you. We're committed to him. We're committed to that filmmaker.
Sure. Yeah. And you don't take it personally, right? Like, whereas there are some that have given us consecutive opportunities like the mission thing after we won the first time.
Yeah.
We didn't have to pitch again. And that was unbelievable for the last 3 movies.
Yeah, McHugh's just like, I'm making 2 movies, you're doing them, you know? It's like...
Yeah, and that's the trust that I like to think that we extend to our team. Like, you don't have to prove yourself. Once you've done something and you've shown us, Joel, that you care.
Yeah,
right.
You care.
Yeah, you give a shit.
Oh my God. Oh, we have to. So we can't just expect that of other people. We can't just expect that of the people that work for us. Oh, you have to care and we don't have to care. No, trust me, I'm there. We are going to be in the trenches with you. But we also want work-life balance. Mm-hmm. We're not going to kill you. And the hiatus that you mentioned that we have now, that taught us we're done killing ourselves and killing other people. We're still going to work our asses off, but we're not going to kill you, and we're not going to put you through what we've been put through as young men in this industry. We're not going to do that anymore.
Yeah, and to close the loop, the game is, if Martin Scorsese calls and it's the day after Thanksgiving, does Aaron take the job or not?
It's we, but
it's we, but but I mean, the creative is mostly you. But and the point being,
no, but the job.
Yeah, the point being is like the bucket. There's everyone has their bucket list of filmmakers that they want to work with that they haven't collaborated with, and our list might be getting smaller, but there's still some people that we haven't worked with that we really want to. And so the joke is it's Thanksgiving week and we're all thinking about our vacation and our break. And I'm like, Aaron, the phone's ringing. It's Martin Scorsese wants you to do Killers of the Flower Moon. Like,
so see, now I know what we're going to talk about over tequila at Paradiso in Mexico. Is I'm going to be like, all right, so level with me. Give me the list. I know it's shorter, but I want to hear the list.
We'll give it to you.
I love that.
It's short. Yeah. And the answer is no.
The answer is no. That's the crazy part.
We're not doing it.
Not doing it.
We're not doing it. We have to just wait. And hope. And we just have to say, look, we want this to happen, but it's got to happen in January.
Or we'll take the next one.
It's also so funny, and this is just the last point about that, is that the studio and the filmmakers all think they're going to get their job done by Christmas. And how often is that never the case? And the schedule always pushes, and it always pushes into the next year. And we could have been doing the job, and you could have just had a vacation.
Always.
Right.
And that's what made us realize, why are we working up until Christmas or the week between Christmas and New Year's? What is wrong with these people? That's literally part of the reason why we instituted the policy, where we're like, you know what? We just have to actually nip this in the bud and be like, we're not even there.
I mean,
this
is part of being the expert, right? Is that you have been through this drill so many times. You're like, we know the pattern.
Yeah, you're saying that the DI is due on December 20. It's not. It's not going to be done. The VFX aren't going to be done. The titles aren't going to be done.
Not going to happen.
You could push this. The schedule needs to push. Right. We'll see you next year.
And I'm not being a jerk. Fine. I'm taking my expertise and I'm trying to imbue it into your project and make sure that you're successful. So be honest about this.
And that literally happened on one of this at late 2024. It was like, you might not be able to do this job. We're like, okay, guess what? That job isn't done yet. The titles aren't even thought about yet. And it's March.
There it is.
Okay.
Yeah, and we know, we can feel it. We know what's going on with the schedule. We can feel it. But it is what it is. Anyway.
I feel like we could probably do 2, 3, 4 podcasts and still have plenty of good stuff to talk about. But let me ask one sort of final question, and we can answer this conceptually and rather than unpack it in detail. Seth, why are you excited about the future in Filmograph?
Great question.
Why am I excited about the future? I think just the level of work getting better and better each year, like Aaron was talking about. The projects still excite me. I'm still a movie lover. I love working. Like I said, the best experience is working with repeat clients that are now just your friends, and it just doesn't feel like work, and it's effortless. And I mean, it's hard work, but it feels effortless. And I think we're just on a trajectory where each year is better than the last.
All right, Aaron, your go.
I think it's such a tricky question because there's that feeling of always trying to look ahead as a business owner and plan for the future. But then you don't want to lose appreciation for the present. You want to experience things as they come to you and not try to force outcomes on. And that's something that we've talked a lot about, where the way we communicate on a pitch call, or we used to probably be seemingly more thirsty in terms of the way we communicated. And I think at this point, we genuinely want to work with most of the people that approach us. But if for some reason they walk away now or in the future, I think we've learned to not be so crestfallen or take it as personally. So I think the thing I'm most excited about is our personal growth within the company we've built and the relationships getting stronger both with the clients and the artists, because by the time we're done, whenever that is, Seth has an earmarked date.
Hold on. No,
But hold on, I'll come back
that's
to that.
on
I'll
the
come back
price
to
of
that.
Bitcoin.
I'll come back to
All
that.
right, sorry.
I'll come back to that. But like whenever that is, as long as like we can be proud of the work and the relationships, and we've maintained all these friendships and artistic, I would call them relationships based around the artistry that we've been doing together. That is like beyond my wildest dreams. And the reason why I say it that way, looking forward, is that 10 years ago, before Seth and I partnered, 11 years ago before we partnered, I remember writing something down and saying, one day I want to have a team that I'm creative directing on multiple projects because I think that I would be really good at that. Like it was something that was like an exercise, a writing exercise, because I was just doing a lot of it on my own before Seth and I started teaming up. And all I'm saying is now that's already happened. I'm not looking for more and more the way that the mill did. I'm sorry, I have to end on that.
Yeah.
We don't aspire to be a juggernaut behemoth, irresponsibly hiring and firing people for 10 to 20 years at a time. We don't aspire that kind of growth. We just want to be us, and we want to be creative, and we want to make people happy and make a little bit of money while we do it, hopefully a little bit more each year. And that's pretty much it. Let's just hang out and have some tequila, buddy.
Dude, I mean, hats off to you guys. Kudos for having those values and that clarity. And I think I speak for a lot of people in the industry and a lot of friends that we are cheering you on and saying more power to you. And I'm really grateful for this conversation. It's been super fun. Way more fun and fluid than I was expecting. I don't know what I was expecting, but now we're gonna
get really fluid down
apparently.
In Mexico, and we're gonna be drinking fluid as well.
Well,
I have a no vomit policy.
I was gonna say I don't do hangovers, so I'm with you there, Seth. But
we have to be careful.
Yeah,
we have to be careful. Anyway, no, Joel, you're the man. We're so happy for you and everything you've done in the last 11 months.
Thank you.
And actually, wait a minute. I guess we can celebrate a year.
Yeah, sure.
A little bit early.
Yeah, because probably by the time this drops, it'll be about a year for Forum and the relaunch and all that stuff. Thank you very much.
Spectacular.
That's amazing, man. You've been catapulted into this new position, like you said, because of circumstances that forced you to do something new.
And here we
That's
are.
what it's all about.
And here we go. And the future is bright.
Force us to do something new. Will there be forcing to do something new?
Yeah.
No,
I know.
Hold on, but the empty paragraph of the next writing exercise was like, I think after establishing a bond of trust with all these really fantastic producers, if the right project, I think Aaron and I felt as passionate about the work we do on a day-to-day basis, or like a feature or a short-term thing, like a piece of content, that we would feel comfortable enough and feel like we would be accomplished enough to ask those filmmakers, would you help us make this? And so that would probably be whatever that long-distance Filmograph future thing could be.
Yeah, and in the meantime, like, dreams have come true already, and we hope there's more around the corner. But man, we've already
but not in December.
Yeah, not in December. Don't call
not
us
in December.
Don't throw down the gauntlet in December.
Joel, thank you so much for your time, man.
I'll see you in Mexico next week. Thanks for listening to The Fabulist, and thanks to my collaborators at Coop Studios. If you run a studio and desire to master the art of business, apply to join Forum, my private network of the world's leading studios. For details, just go to joelpilger.com.